All right, today we're diving into a really intense geopolitical monologue. It starts small with what's described as a daily border incident in Syria. But wow, it quickly balloons out to cover colonialism, regional politics, and even how we consume information today. So let's get right into it.
So, the whole thing kicks off with this really provocative claim. The speaker says that many of the Israeli soldiers who are crossing into Syria are actually of Arab origin, specifically from Tunisia and Morocco. And this isn't just a throwaway detail, it's the jumping off point for a huge argument that really pushes back against the way we usually hear this story told.
Okay, so to really get what the speaker is arguing, we have to start where they start, on the ground with these supposed daily events happening near the Syrian Golan Heights. The argument here is that these aren't, rare or shocking events. Not at all. They're painted as a daily routine, almost like clockwork, something that the local people there have just come to expect every single morning. And what's interesting is the level of detail the source gives to back this up. We're talking specific locations, like the Adnania crossing point. They describe patrols, temporary checkpoints, and even call out the village of Ain Ziwan by name. All these little details are stacked up to create a very clear, very vivid picture of what's allegedly happening. And this all circles back to that first big claim, right? The speaker insists that local people figured out where these soldiers were from just by talking to them, hearing those distinct Tunisian and Moroccan accents in their Arabic. The source even goes as far as to say that some of the soldiers straight up told them they were Arab Jews. So what's the point of all this, according to the source? Well, the argument is that the Syrian government doesn't see this as a typical military move. They see it as a psychological game. The goal? To just wear people down, to make the presence of Israeli soldiers seem normal, routine, and in doing so, break down what the speaker calls the psychological barrier. But is that it? Is this story just about these border patrols? As you can probably guess, the speaker argues that no, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And that brings us to the next major piece of this argument, which is where things get, well, really explosive. We're talking about claims of deep, hidden cooperation between different powers in the region. I mean, check this out. The speaker makes the incredibly serious claim that pilots from other Arab countries were actually involved in bombing campaigns in Gaza and Lebanon. Think about that for a second. The implication is a kind of military alliance that is absolutely not part of the public story. To back up this idea of hidden influence, the speaker brings up an anecdote about the Oslo Accords. They say, citing a Swedish official, that Israel basically gave an ultimatum. They'd only negotiate if Mahmoud Abbas was put in charge on the Palestinian side. The whole point of this story is to argue that outside forces have been pulling the strings and shaping Palestinian leadership for a long, long time. And it all builds up to this central idea, that the politics of the region are not what they appear to be on the surface. The speaker claims that a figure like Benjamin Netanyahu wasn't just acting alone, but was actually getting support, enabled even, by other leaders right there in the Arab world. So, where does all this come from? According to the speaker, none of this is new. It's not just modern politics. Instead, it's the direct result of a very long, very complicated history. And that's where the monologue takes a big turn, stepping way back in time. The argument traces the roots of everything we're talking about back to European colonialism. The basic idea here is simple. If you don't get the colonial history, you can't possibly understand what's happening today. And when it comes to who shaped the modern Middle East, the speaker points the finger at two main players, the British and the French. Their decisions, their policies, they're presented as the very foundation for the conflicts we see playing out right now. So to build this case, the speaker starts with the big picture of colonialism, pointing to what the Belgians, Dutch, and Italians did in Africa. But then the focus narrows right in on the British, who are described in really harsh terms, like murderous, and accused of using soldiers from the Indian subcontinent to control their empire. So you can see how the argument flows chronologically here. It starts centuries ago with colonialism in Africa, then moves into the 20th century with British and French dominance in the Middle East, and then it really hones in on two massive events, the 1917 Balfour Declaration and the 1947 partition of India. And this quote really gets to the heart of the historical argument being made. From the speaker's point of view, the Balfour Declaration was the ultimate betrayal. It's framed as this unbelievable act of colonial power, one country just giving away land that wasn't theirs to give. The source calls it unjust, aggressive, and basically criminal. Okay, so after walking us through this long, charged history of manipulation and injustice, the speaker makes one final, really important pivot. They bring it all into the present day and ask, how does any of this history matter to us right now? with information flying at us from everywhere. And this final part of the monologue is a pretty sharp critique of, well, us, of modern society. The argument is that the same old games of manipulation are still being played. They just look a little different now. The claim here is pretty direct. People have just stopped thinking critically. The speaker accuses us of just scrolling and absorbing stuff from unreliable sources, social media, Instagram, figures who haven't really been vetted, and we're not doing the hard work of actually researching anything for ourselves.
So what you see here is this really stark contrast. On one side, you have what the speaker is calling for: scrutiny, investigation, reading. And on the other side, you have what they claim is actually happening. People are gullible, they accept propaganda, and they just follow the crowd.
And this right here is pretty much the final warning of the whole piece. The speaker argues that this lack of critical thinking is being actively exploited. That because we don't read, because we don't investigate, we become these easy targets for anyone who wants to feed us a certain narrative and basically shape our reality for us. So in the end, this monologue is more than just a political argument. It's a direct challenge to everyone listening. By linking this deep history to the way we scroll through our phones today, it leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. In an age with so much noise, if we're not the ones digging for the truth, then who is?